Welcome to Haunt Topic Radio, the podcast for haunters by haunters. These are scary visions.
Welcome back, haunters, to another episode of Haunt Topic Radio. Well, I know we're in like spring, summertime. It's hot here in Missouri. You guys are probably out there painting and building and trying to decide what you're going to do for this year's haunt. Well, you got your walls up and now it's time to paint. There are so many different ways to paint, but creating realistic effects brings your customers into a world that you create so they can experience it. In this episode, we get Rich Cimino on from Bent Circus FX. This was a masterclass. This audio is heavily visual as well. We did a masterclass for our Haunt Master members. If you are one of our Haunt Master members or Pro Haunter member, you will get a recording to this class as well. Really cool techniques that Rich is sharing with us to make your walls pop. He goes over burnt effects, peeling paint, how to make cool effects under your paint, different ways to add texture to your walls, and much more. If you join to be a Pro Haunter or Haunt Master member before June 11th, that is on a Tuesday, our next masterclass will be on marketing. Guerrilla type marketing, cheap ways to get people in your haunt. This will be produced by Laura from Fearworm. So you don't want to miss that one, especially when marketing is key to getting people in your doors. How do you do that on a budget and sometimes for free? You sign up to be a Pro Haunter or Haunt Master member, you will get an invite to that class. So head on over to haunterstoolbox.com and sign up today. Well, let's roll into it. Our masterclass with Rich Cimino from Bent Circus FX on wall textures and techniques. So tonight, guys, we have Rich Cimino. So from Bent Circus FX.
Yes.
Also from Scream Zone. This is all in California. Scream Zone, Haunted Hotel, and Haunted Trail Balboa Park in San Diego.
That's correct.
And we are discussing wall textures and some cool stuff that you can do with your wall panels and your scenes. Some burnt looks, some peeling looks, how to layer stuff, paints, layering. Rich is going to show us how to do it. We have a PowerPoint presentation. There's nothing live that Rich is doing, but he has a good presentation that we're going to go through. So if you guys have any questions, let me let Vic in. If you have any questions as we're going along, we'll try to stop at certain sections and ask questions.
Sure.
So, Rich, while I'm loading this up, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got started in this game and what you're doing.
Oh, sure. And the other thing too, real quick, Brian, if anybody out there has questions, they can always reach me, either on Instagram or through my email or anything on there with questions. Even if they need to FaceTime or Zoom me for that too, that's not a problem. But basically, I've been doing this in the haunt industry for a little over 20 years. Started doing mostly for makeup, and always really loved the makeup as a kid, and got even more interested, and then went to Florida and actually worked on a haunted house that's not there any longer. It's called the Forum of Fear, and that there was my real first big introduction to actually doing haunt makeup, and really was crazy. Like, it's totally different, but I had a little bit of theater background. And it's similar to doing theater makeup, as far as, you're not doing very fine lines for veins and such. It's going to be really pronounced because these people see you maybe 3 seconds, before they close their eyes or they run. So they have to know, like, okay, you're a burn victim. Oh, you're a vampire. You're a zombie. Super quick. So everything gets really just magnified. And what was crazy is what got me going even further on it, as I had mentioned earlier, I did crime scene investigation in Florida for years, and I actually got to see what this stuff looked like in real life. So then I was like, oh, that's what entrails look like. Okay. That's not what they show you on there.
Yay.
You know, you really, I got to really see what blood looked like coagulated and old, and just what stuff looked like, so that helped with a lot of detail stuff for me. Moving fast forward a bunch of years, the company that I'm with, the Haunted Hotel in San Diego, those guys have been there for about 11 years now with them, and started as a makeup artist, went to the lead makeup, and then got, if everybody knows with the haunt business, you're never just wearing one hat. And that just snowballed, and they found out I knew how to work on chainsaws and compressors. So I did that and ended up doing more of the lighting and more of the theatrical painting, the scenic stuff, which is what I really love to do with like theater stuff. I did some theater work out here in San Diego as well, but the haunt stuff is really where it's at for me. But yeah, just I've always been into the horror movies. Definitely more into like the mind bending kind of horror. I like the slashing, especially old school slashing, not the new CGI stuff. The blood just doesn't look right. I'd rather give me the practical effects. They just look
Yep.
better. But yeah, it's been fun. And then I go around. I do seminars. I just did Fear Expo out in Kentucky just a few, like, oh my God, almost a month ago, and HauntCon earlier in the year. So I try to get out and do that stuff. And just really, when I was doing the painting, I didn't have anybody who really kind of taught me. It was more or less a lot of guys who did know it, didn't want to give you their tricks, like job security kind of thing. And I get it. But in the same aspect, you can't say, well, we want people to be a haunt community and a haunt family, but yet I'm not going to tell you how to do nothing. So, so for me, kind of giving it back. And if you know a better technique than I know, then tell me. I'd love to know it. And it's all about, trial and error. That's what I did a lot of.
Knowing the technique and actually being able to use the technique are two different things. You can know lots of stuff. I know lots of stuff, but I may not be good at it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so. Yeah, and you get to be that jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, but I think there might be,
there's a badge for that.
HD. What was that?
There's a badge for that.
Yeah. Oh, do you have a badge? Yeah.
Shameless plug.
That's right. That's awesome. I'll expect that one, Brian.
Okay. I got you.
I think Scare It badges are one of the smartest things I've seen in the industry in a really long time. Scare It badges are basically either pins or embroidered patches, kind of like merit badges, as they are, somewhat named after, from Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Brownies, and where after you've accomplished something, you can wear the brag tag of the embroidered patch. Some haunts put them on jackets, some put them on t-shirts, some put them on, with the pins, I've seen them put them on lanyards. But the neat thing about them is they are very specific in what they are rewarding. And they're haunt-based images that reflect what's being rewarded. It's retention, it is bringing people back, and it's actually giving your haunters, your haunt performers, the ability to share that they are haunt performers. And, oh really, you're a scare actor, where do you do that? And then they will insert the name of your haunt right there. So it's also marketing. I've always been a big fan of Scare It badges. I think they're great. So check them out, scareitbadges.com. No, that is not a paid advertisement. That is just my recommendation. I think it's really cool.
ScottSwinson.com.
But yeah, so basically I just enjoy it. I enjoy the haunt. I enjoy watching people get scared and piss their pants and lose their shoes and push their girlfriends in front of you. That kind of stuff just gets me going. But the scenery, I'm one of those guys that if I do go to Not Scary Farm or Universal, I'm the one that everybody's like, trying to push past, because I'm trying to touch what the scenery is and look at everything and see how they did this. Because you get desensitized, you might startle me, but you're definitely not going to scare me. It's just, I can't, it just, I'm just like, okay, yeah, but good job. But what's this?
This. Where are you hiding that light at?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So that's the only bummer I have to say with doing haunts, is if you do it long enough and you love it that much, you do get desensitized, I feel. I do know some people that are still terrified of them, but that part is sad, but it's a good trade. It's a good trade-off.
To me, it's like when you know the secret to the magic trick, you know how it's done. So it's like,
Mhm.
you know.
It loses
But
its.
like you said, I can still get startled because I try to let my guard down when I go in.
Mhm.
So I still like to get startled,
Mhm.
Things you scare me, you stick me in close quarters where I can't get out.
Mhm.
That's where I get kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah, we had one that was out here called 17th Floor, I believe it is. And
mhm.
they actually put you in this a bunch of you, and they put you in individual boxes standing upright, and they drop a window down and squirt you with water and stuff like that. And I was just like, wow, if this was real, how the hell would I get out? So I'm looking around, and I ended up with my pocket knife. I was able to pop the lock off, and I popped out of the thing, and I was walking around looking behind the scenes, and one of the actors came around in costume, didn't break character, which was good, and just like stared at me from down the hall, like what the hell, and I was like, you could see he was like, wait a minute, this is not right. So I was just like, do I need to go back in the box? He's like, get back in the box, like all like tough and stuff. I'm like, dude, you almost shit your pants when you didn't see somebody you didn't know. you know but yeah, so it's like stuff like that I enjoy. Yeah, okay, it wasn't right, and we'd probably yell at somebody if they did it in our haunt, but that's
Yeah.
how we know. But when stuff, how it breaks and stuff too, because if we're gonna touch it, we should be screwed down. That kind.
Let's roll into some painting techniques.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, these are going to be your thought about pretty much any room. We're doing them for like the burn looks and the peeling looks, but any room, whether you're going to have it rusty, if it's going to be an outdoorsy type of room or like an abandoned house, really need to kind of say, okay, this is the theme of the room, and what are we going to go for? Example for that is like it says with the realism, definitely less is better. You can always add, and it's harder to take away. The main thing too is when you're doing your scenic work, and even with your guys who are doing, if you're not doing your own set dressing, you make sure you're in with the lighting guys. Reason being is because the light spectrum is totally different than the actual pigment spectrum with paint. So if you have a green room and then you put in red lights, well, now you got a brown or a black room because that light cancels out the color. So you really have to be cognizant of what you want to show up and how you want it to show up, which will be a big deal when we start going through the burnt look that we'll go through in here. Also, in that same thing, I love having the scents, the smells that you can put in. I think it adds a really awesome, just an extra, obviously for your senses, but just an extra oomph in your haunt and in the thing. Now there is like the decomp one and stuff. They smell pretty good and they do linger on your clothes, so you kind of do smell it. So if it's nasty, but for like our burnt charred rooms, using like a wood burn stove smell, or they have like fire pit smell, stuff like that, really helps sell it. And then that stuff you can add to the fog like it's in there. And then the other thing is when I do any of my rooms, I have like a book, I call it my morgue, and I just take photos that I get. A lot of it's from, if you find urban explorers, those guys come out with great photos of abandoned buildings and busted up
Good
buildings.
call.
And yeah, and they really, I mean, they're getting some of the stuff like it's just been untouched for years. And I take those photos and they're only for me. And it's just to practice techniques and just to see how stuff looks, because an abandoned house that someone left a month ago is way going to look different than one that's 15 years abandoned, and just the way everything looks. And like you see those old hospital buildings with the paint falling off the ceiling. I mean, that's kind of eerie, and that's what you're going for. You want to transport your patrons into that burning room, into that boiler room, into that ship. You want them, as soon as they go in there, like they, instantly, not only are they screwed, but where they're going to get screwed. What kind of room. Did that make sense? I know.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Right on. And then on the if you want to go to the next one, Brian, it kind of goes
Let me
up on what kind of the supplies and such that you use on here. For the theme room, like the smoke and the damage stuff, the embers, it's really cool. Wildfire is a great paint company. The pigment is very highly pigmented, and the only downfall is they're expensive. I don't know if any of you guys ever had used it, but they're really great paint. And usually you can get away with one coat or two max. They really lay on pretty good, but they pick up even in like your 30-watt UV lights. They pick up really nice. And I use a lot of that with doing any charring, or if you put on like a slow flicker for a UV light, and it kind of just makes it look like, you know, how the fire is alive kind of thing. Which, on a side note, if you guys do anything with the makeup, you can do the same look using like Tag or Wolf FX water-based paint. They make really good paints. Also, Mile FX also makes a really good one. And you can basically kind of black out the face a little bit and just have these go in. And then when they hit the light, the patron will see the actor's kind of face burning, you know, which you could do for veins and stuff like that too, if you're graveyard, on a side note on there. But basically, like it said on here, your black, dark and light grays, burnt umber is going to be your real main color when you're talking about like for the fires and such, because it's that kind of tannish, like yellowish looking fade that you get from burnt, freshly burnt places on there. Also, we're going to talk about some mass latex and slip latex. Also Visqueen, which is, I'm sure you guys all know it, but it's that polyvinyl fireproof plastic that we use. They come in white and black, but I'll show you some of that stuff too. And then the popcorn sealing, the spackle paste, and white or wood glue. As long as it's a PVA glue, you will usually help on that stuff. And then on the next one, we'll some of the tools that are in here. Most of them you guys will have. The cool ones on it are if you look to the top right on that picture, that is the alligator skin silicone texture roller. And I'll go through it when we get to that slide, but it actually makes for that really, like, when wood is super, super charred up and it starts to break away and break down, you'll see it with that. And, definitely with any of these, any of the tools, practice them on a separate substrate, but the same type of substrate. If you're using OSB, don't go and put plywood, because it's going to do different things depending on what you do. So definitely practice on the same type of substrate. And this way you'll get used to it. And the techniques at first are going to be a little foreign, but you just practice them. You go through it. You could change stuff up. You'll screw up. I guarantee it. I still screw up. I've been doing it for years, because you say, oh, what if this, will this work? Oh, no, it didn't work. Okay. Wash it out, whatever. But, and then the heat gun hair dryer, I prefer the heat gun just because you're always trying to get the time going. So it heats up faster. You can get a quicker response to when you're melting the glue and getting to manipulate and stuff like that. All right.
Spray 77. What's that?
Oh, come on, you guys don't know what Spray 77? Wait a minute. You guys are pulling my leg. Are you serious?
I know what it is.
Oh, okay. You guys are killing me. I thought you were pulling my leg.
I don't know if Brian uses it or not, but it is the best spray adhesive ever.
It's a spray adhesive. Yeah. And they actually make a stronger one, which is 99, spray 99. But most of it's the spray.
Tougher to find.
And Home Depot, Lowe's sells it. I mean, all the big guys sell them. Yeah. But it's really sticky. Definitely, before you put it away, grab a little acetone and on a rag and clean off your nozzle.
The tip, yeah.
Otherwise, next time you spray it might spray back at you. This stuff, it has a mind of its own when it's dried up. But you would use it if, let's say, you're putting up two pieces of paper or a piece of paper on a wall, like a sign or whatever. You would spray each part, the wall and whatever you're putting up, and then let that dry for a little bit till it's tacky, and then put them together. And that stuff sticks great. Be careful on fabrics and carpet, because it is a bitch to try to get out when it happens. I know Daryl's shaking his head, so I know that's happened.
I've used some of it in costuming and stuff as well, and
it works great, but boy,
it works really good. Unfortunately, if you get it where you don't want it, it's a pain in the ass. So you have to make lumps of dirt on costumes because
sure, you just add texture and stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
That was the one thing, like when I did makeup, I would tell the makeup artist, it was like, look, it's not a big deal. If you screw up, throw some blood on it. No one's gonna know.
Yeah, if it rips, just leave it there. As long as you don't trip over it, you're good.
Yeah.
Do you know what causes haunted attractions to shut down before they even get started? The top 3 roadblocks are lack of funding, lack of leadership, lack of resources. As a member of the Haunters Toolbox, you get instant access to the tools you need to start and grow your own haunted attraction business. To get started, become a member at haunterstoolbox.com.
Okay, so this technique actually has several uses. I love using the sea sponges on there, and they have the synthetic ones, and you have the real ones. The real ones you really have to kind of take care of and make sure you get all the moisture out and let them air out and dry, which is not as much as for the synthetics. But for this, I always start with that burnt umber look, and you can kind of see once you put it in, you're going to be stippling it, which is basically pressing it against like this way onto the wall or whatever you're using. And all these techniques can be used on props as well. And the thing is to get it so you're actually moving the sponge in different erratic spaces, because you want it to look organic. You don't want it to look like it's manufactured that way. And you can also use a spray bottle, lighten it up, and then get it to fade more and more. So you're getting it more or less to blend in with the color that's on the wall, whether it is. And on the right side, you kind of see how it starts to look faded, and you want darker areas in some spots. And again, this is where it's going to help to have your reference picture. A lot of stuff that you'll see in these kind of instances for this look will be like if you ever saw an outlet that got charred and burned or arced, and it has that kind of smoky charred look to it. This is going to be kind of the way you can get it. So it depends on what you're putting, what you want it to look like in general. If it's just a light burn and they just torched it, then you can just use a lighter touch on it. But the blending is the big thing onto that one. All right, Brian. So
we do have one question here, and I'm not sure whether you're going to get to it, but
bring it.
Victor's got, would you change anything trying to simulate coal versus wood fueled fire? He's doing a boiler room scene this year looking for hot coal and hot metal looks. So just maybe kind of remember that, unless is that something coming up, or answer it? It might be answered in some of your stuff already.
It kind of, but if you're going to be doing the hot metal look, you're definitely going to use more bluish purples and white for the way the temperament goes. The temper goes in the metal and out of the metal. If you ever burn like a knife, you start to see you'll get that red, and then it will turn like the blue, and that's taking the temper out, so it's losing its actual strength. That's why you don't want to get like certain things too hot, or when you're doing metal fabrication, you get them super hot, and then you can bend them and manipulate the metal on it. So for those things, you're going to do more of your blues and purples, but they're not going to be stark blues and purples. It's just going to be a very light, almost unobtrusive kind of color range for it in there. If you want, I've never done one like an actual metal one, but I can definitely screw around with doing that, and then just hit me up and I'll send you photos. I'll send you guys photos of it on there. Actually, I'll write it in here so I know. And then as far as with the charcoal and such, with the normal burning of wood and coal, you're gonna use the white. You're going to use a lot of light grays and white too, because it actually draws out all of the minerals out of there, which will turn it white. If you ever see like the hot coals when you're barbecuing and they start to pretty much go done, they're turning like a light gray to a white. And that's going to be the same. Wood does the same thing. And that we will touch on earlier, but I didn't have anything for like the actual metal. But the best thing is like go and take a look and see if you find any photos with that sort of look. It also depends, like if you're doing like car kind of stuff, you're going to have more. There's definitely a lot more of the burnt umber and the white if you look at car fire, because that is doing a similar thing. It's taking away all the properties out of that substrate, out of that metal, and it's actually turning it to like a white. That's with the white hot flame kind of thing. So you basically, it's going to be just something you have to look at and see how it chars up. But that's a great question though, as far as with the metal. I'm writing it down because I want to check and try doing that out too, because I have seen those with the blues and the purples. But thanks, Victor. Gave me something more to do on there. So with this, I usually like doing the chip brush, but you can, yeah, you're very welcome. What you can do also is with the sponge as well, and it's still basically doing a lot of the blotting and a lot of the stippling in it, and you'll get used to it. It's the same kind of technique motion that I'll use for like doing rust, for doing any other kind of charred stuff. Even if you're doing like wall treatments, just to mix colors into it to make them look faded and such. It's just, you'll see you start to manipulate it and move it, and you can always use water to put it on and kind of just dab it. And when I mean water, just like a spritz, you just want to reactivate the paint a little bit. You don't want to get it to drip, you don't want it to get it to smear and really start to mix in with the paint, because otherwise the look is not going to look really good. For this, I will load up usually like black. I'll usually have like a little palette that has all the colors in it, because a lot of times you want to mix a little bit with the white, make a gray with it, mix a little with the burnt umber, and then just stipple that on there. And again, going back to your picture that you're looking at for reference, you're kind of wanted to emulate that and get it as close as that. Now, the other thing too, when you're doing these techniques, this technique you probably wouldn't do for a background setting. If you're gonna, this is gonna be more upfront props that are burned, any, if there's theatrical elements that are going to be closer to the patrons, this is where you want to spend more time on the look so they understand it. And the further back, just like with rust, you're not going to use texturing, you're not going to use the sawdust, because it kind of gets lost back there between lighting, between them running through, closing their eyes. You're going to lose that. So you don't have to spend a lot of time on, with these techniques if it's going to be further in the background on it. You could, I'm just trying to save you money and time on paint. You can get the same look just by doing it in the grays and the blacks, and they'll know it's charred. Throw a little red light, one of those the red water lights, so it kind of has that motion going to it onto those. But the further up you go, you'll definitely want to have it so you can see it. And the big thing with all this is, if you look towards the right of the bottom right picture, you want to keep that burnt umber there. You want that pop of color, because that is actually what's giving it the burnt look. Like it, just because we've seen it a million times. The other way, we could manipulate the one on the more to the left with water and a little bit of like spritzing and splatter, and we could turn that into mold if we wanted to. So the burnt umber is really what's kind of helping it look burnt, and and just getting it just that disarray. And anytime that I need to do more with like a blend and it's out further, you can definitely use spray cans, just further away, and I'm talking like maybe like 12 to 14 inches away, because you just want to, like sometimes you'll find where the wind's blowing it, and you spray it that way into the wind and let the wind take it, and it will kind of dust the entire piece. So then you get that, how the flame looks when you get that char, it's going up, and the smoke damage that you'll get, it will actually help. And then you could do it airbrush as well, and you could do it with the sponge. But I like doing it with the spray can, just because it gives it such a nice, unique look for me onto that. But it's definitely, like it says, like definitely the reference photos is a big thing. Don't go setting stuff on fire. 20 people did it, so you did photos. I don't want to have to do that. and we've done that in the haunt stuff too. So it was real quick. It was bad because we did this entire burn room, but the person we had this whole wood set up on spring hinges that they can open up and leave when they need to, but then it looked like it collapsed on them. So I said, let's just burn it. Let's just burn it, screw the paint. We'll get it really charred and looking. Well, when it laid down, it was kind of like this. And at one point, we're burning it to keep it off the ground, and it's looking like this. And there's neighbors all around, and this thing's on fire. And I'm like, yeah, we need to stop this because right now, like a cross,
It's like a burning cross on the lawn.
Right, that was not the intent. It's like. Well, okay, let's not do it. So just remember your surroundings if you're burning shit, because you don't want to get in trouble or burn a house down either way. But it's just a little side note, we all do crazy, stupid stuff. But
Neighborhood watcher come get you.
I'm telling you, right? That's like, no, it's a haunted house, really.
This podcast episode sponsored by Scenic Badges.
We always were looking for ideas to get those actors to take it to the next level. I really want to do something that they can use more than just a meal, or they can use more than just that a boy, that a girl. They love this stuff, but it's not really promoting a haunter. And then I sit down, Scenic Badges comes out. That's when I realized this is amazing, because not only is it giving them an attaboy, but it's also promoting them all year round. And to promote somebody, to give somebody accolades all year round and have them be able to wear it on their shoulder with pride means a lot. This right here says this is who nailed it on this day in this year for the rest of their life, for the rest of their haunting life. And that's what I really love about this product is you're able to give haunting to somebody an attaboy 365 days a year. And that's so hats off to you guys. I think this is a great product, and I wish you the best of luck because it's awesome.
Get your Scenic Badges at scarebadges.com.
Are you ready to go to the next one?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so this is using the same type of technique, but more for a hot spot. And the hot spots is usually kind of like where the fire would originate from. If you had to go and look around and see where it is, you're going to be doing the same thing. If you look to the top left, the piece in the middle is actually going to be PVA glue, white glue, and that is on there first. And I'm just doing that to let it kind of dry because we're going to paint over it. The same stippling with the burnt umber is going to be around it. Always get that to work its way out. And then you start to add your yellows and your black. And usually I wait until the top part of the glue is pretty much dry, but it's still not fully cured underneath it. And you want to lightly go over that. And you could do it with a brush. If you're going to do it with a roller, the foam rollers work the best because they usually don't pick up the glue if they find like a little spot. If you're doing a nap roller, even if it's like a 1/4-inch nap or such, it's those little fibers are gonna pull something. It's just, or they'll leave something. Either way, it's gonna screw it up. If that's not a big deal, then you can put it on there. I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna come to the haunt and be like, hey, look, they used a 3/4-inch nap and they got all the hair in there. I'm sure they're not gonna do it. If they do, I'm gonna ask them to come along, hire them or something. Got a good eye. But once all that's done, I actually use it to crackle it, and which is where the glue was. And the PVA glue works really good for crackling. And the rule of thumb with that stuff is the thicker the amount of glue that you put on, you're going to have deeper and less crack. The thinner the coat that you have, you'll get your spider crackling and a little bit mess. So definitely work on the look you're actually looking for. Is it just a couple areas that paint on the outside siding was crackling off, and then you can kind of pick it out so they see the back part of the original color and such like that. But you can let it sit out in the sun if you guys are outside and let nature do it. Usually I'll do it with the heat gun, and this way I can kind of see where it goes and how I want to manipulate it, because there's like a fine line with the glue that as it's getting hot, it will move on you, and you can actually direct that movement. You can also start to pick it away if with a tool, an X-Acto, a screwdriver. and then you can actually start letting it manipulate. You can get kind of blow the heat under it and bubble it up, which you'll see on some other things in there. So it definitely gives a really cool effect on that stuff. And then once it's done, the picture on the bottom right was just a little dry brushing with either light gray or a white. And the dry brushing is, in case you guys don't know, basically you're just going to, put your brush in, like, let's say white. You're going to clean off the brush. We call it like rimming the brush, where you kind of put it in the cup and you're kind of getting all the paint off, and then have like a piece of paper towel or toweling, and you actually just wipe the excess off. So what happens is you just want a very, very light coat of paint on your brush, and you're going to actually just brush it like you would normal. And the more that you go through and do this, the more paint is going to get hit, but it's only going to hit the actual the high parts of the piece. This way you only get just those ridges and the top parts of them. And this works with that technique works with everything. Whether you're doing, like a railing, or you're doing a mask, or any props, anything like that. It will work and this is for highlighting, but you can do low lights as well. So if you're looking to do, like, you have a silver and you want some markings that make it really dark, right before you wash it, you can actually dry brush it, and then that will pick up certain areas that you want. And then you can start with a wash on there as well. But it kind of gives you, for this, it brings out those the cracks in it. So this way you'll be able to see it, because the one on the top right is with the cracking. You can see it, and you might be able to pick it up with oblique lighting, but it helps with the white on the bottom one. All right, Brian, let's next one. So these are just some examples of like the charring kind of looks on there. And the one that's on the top left, and it looks like it's basically just flat black, but you can start to see on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, I thought I had better pictures on the thing, but you can start to see where it would start to dissipate, and you get some of the peeling on the left-hand side. Also, you really can't paint them, but those little plastic vials were all melted with a heat gun, because you want everything to start looking melted, and it was just kind of like the charred part of it. On the other pictures that are there, it's more of like a smokehouse kind of setup. So you actually have it so it looks like there's smoke coming on through some of the slats. There actually is no slats. It's all painted on a wall. And you can make certain incisions, like with a Sawzall, or if you end up ripping it and putting the two pieces together to make the slat, and then just put a low pulsating fog, so it kind of bleeds through the bottom of it, and and through the cracks. This way you get that smoke part. But this is another example where, like, having that campfire smell in the fog juice will just sell it even more. Right away they'll know, okay, yeah, something's burning on fire, something's wrong. And on the bottom right is going to be one as it's like transitioning. So you'll have a little bit burntness. If there was more papers and stuff, you can burn the papers and then just stick them with that spray 77 close by, so it looks like it starts to peel away on there. And again, it's just to give the effect. So you on your music, your audio track, you might have as an ambient sound like the wood crackling, or the fire, kind of just those ambient sounds to kind of help sell it. And then of course, if you're adding in the smells with the sound, and you have your lighting where you're having that little bit of the warmth of the fire going in and hitting smoke, that's all going to help sell that environment. So again, you want them to just be immersed and transported into that room for that little bit of time. And unfortunately, most people, you put all this work into it, and a lot of people, like I said, only see it like 3 or 4 seconds, because they're either closing their eyes or running, and it sucks. But but they love the experience, and that's really what we're trying to sell. We're trying to sell the experience of them getting scared, and realizing, and you do get people who say, "Oh wow, do you remember that one burn room? It stunk like it was burning. That guy came out at you." That's that's what you want. That's you hear that stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, that did good. And then you also know stuff that you don't change by listening to some of the patrons, because they're like that, then, well, I don't know what they're trying to do there, and you're like, okay, I'll write that down, I got to change that. But yeah, those are just a couple quick examples. onto that. And we can go to the next one. So this one here is starting to use the wildfire UV reactive paint. And for on these demonstrations, the bottom left is the sponge roller, and it's just a texture roller. You can get a regular full sponge roller and just pull out the pieces of it. And what it does is it kind of gives you that like kind of a charred look, but yet it's kind of where it's missing the where it burned away, and it's starting to the umbers are starting to really kind of take over the piece of wood or over the object, so it's kind of like breaking away and kind of coming through on there. So that's what this kind of helps with on the texture. And again, with this roller, this is being shown for this, but you can use it on walls. I'll use this kind of roller with like a different faded kind of paint look. So if you're looking, and you can just with water on it, you can actually get it to really seep in, and it looks like it's been just old and dirty. And if you add some light browns and stuff, you can make it look dusty on there as well. The cool thing is, if you look to the very right picture, there's the same photo, however it's picking up the UV light. And I use the red yellow orange kind of look, because if it's getting picked up by the theatrical lights it's not UV, you still want them to kind of see that there's some redness in there. But when the UV hits it, you can actually and you wouldn't really hit it. Usually wouldn't hit it that much. Maybe a strobe it. Or if you're going to do it, you might do like a 50 water that's further back and hitting it. It's widening out. A flood that's widening out. The one on the right was actually with a actual flashlight, a UV flashlight. So you pick up the blue from the black on there. But if you're doing it in the haunt, you're not going to see the black as much, turning up as blue, because it's quicker. We did it because I wanted to concentrate on actually getting the photo with the UV in there.
Yeah, and sometimes things show up differently in photos than they do to the naked eye.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes they look better. Then you're like, wow,
sometimes they do.
On there. But basically, with doing this, I'll start with the UV paint onto it, and you can mix them up. Like you could just do plain red or do the red, orange, yellow on there. Once it's dry, then I'll actually run the sponge roller. Now I'll do basically put some black paint or dark gray paint on a flat piece of wood, or something, not in one of the paint trays, because you don't want to saturate this thing like you would do if you're painting a house. You just kind of want to go over it and just hit the high spots of the roller. And then when you actually apply it to the piece, you want to lightly roll it. And you'll know right away if you're going too heavy or too light, because you'll either get way too much and it will look muddy, or you'll get it so it looks faded. And you can keep going over it, and there's no rhyme or reason, unless you're looking for a certain point to be visualized and them to hone into. Like if you're doing a circle and you want them to look here, you would do more of it and starting to fade that the sponge roller technique closer to it, so it brings their eye to what you want them to see in that red, and then you hit it with the UV. So this way it's already drawing them to it, and then you hit it. You see a lot of that too in like big, if you're going through like a tunnel or another room, and the area would be super like done up, and they're showing you like this is the direction they want you to walk. So it's basically kind of directing your flow of traffic, if you will.
You mean you can make people look where you want them to look just by painting?
Yeah, right. Which brings us to that other thing too, why we get desensitized, is because we know you're trying to, over here you're trying to get me to look, but I know they're over there. I know the jump scare scene. It's,
exactly.
It's terrible to say, but yeah, exactly. Like that's the whole point is, direct them with the light, direct them, with obviously your actors, if you have them in there, or animatronics, you want them to be directed to those things. And, they don't realize it, I don't think, for the most part. They just kind of go, it's the guys, the haunt people like us, that are not going to go that way, because we want to see, well, what are they doing on this side, and what's behind that curtain, kind of thing. So You can't take us to those things.
Mhm.
But it's definitely a nice texture routine. And again, you could do it with any colors. Like if you're doing an alien kind of thing, do a UV green, and it could be like a green, a whole big setup where it's breaking like let's say like an alien egg, and you want the green in the egg to come through. You can paint it around the egg. So with this technique, and it looks like it's starting to break apart, and kind of shining through it, and then throw, uplight it from the back with a green light, so it's really, kind of motion, but yeah, definitely mix around with them, and they don't have to be used just for this. Definitely play around with them. But go ahead, Brian. We could go to the next one. All right. So we kind of popped on this with the glue, and any of the PVA glue. Basically, I know it's a little more expensive, but I like using the Type Bond 2 wood glue. It seems like the consistency holds up better to heat than the white glue, like the Elmer's glue and such like that. But for any of the burn effects on there, you actually can put it to the areas, and once it's glued, now remember, the more amount of glue that you put on, the different the cracks will look. And you can put on, like heavy on one side, and it gradually goes down to light. So there's heavy cracks to light cracks. Play around with it. You could definitely do that with them on that. But the other thing is, once you get done and you want to cover over it, like I said on here, use the foam roller, because it shouldn't pick it up, and it usually will lay down the paint nice and smooth, other than a nap roller that are in there. And you're going to end up heating it up and getting it to bubble and crack. The bubbling it's kind of a weird thing, because at first it'll just look like it's going to melt, and all of a sudden it's just going to pop off. And usually you want to kind of keep it going, but keep it hot. And what I mean, don't concentrate on one section with the heat gun, because it will get super hot, and you will end up drying the glue out and burning it. And it doesn't affect, but it might not be the one you're looking for. So definitely move around. And usually I'll go anywhere from like 4 to 6 inches, depending on, one, how hot the gun gets, and two, when you start to manipulate, and when it starts to move around. And you'll see it once you start seeing it bubble and such. You'll be, okay, well, that's a little too much bubble. Let's lay off the heat and go on to that. But practicing with this is definitely key on there, and work in smaller sections. If you're going to do a larger section that you really want it to look cracking, and you're not going to do a paint crack, like as far as going in and cracking it with a paintbrush or with like a feather or something, if you're going to use this, do them in sections, because you don't want the glue to dry off, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I got to put more glue on, and then it kind of looks weird, and you'll burn the glue that's underneath, and that will make it react differently to the fresh stuff you put on. But overall, I mean, you'll still get the cracks that you want to get onto, depending on the glue. And go ahead on the next one. Okay, so this is showing the bubbling kind of thing, and the bubbling, you'll see it like on walls that have gotten super hot, but they have a lot of paint. Even if you see if water seeps through walls and start to stretch out that Lexan paint and stuff like that. But the burn bubbling will look more like on the bottom right, and you could do more and less on it. And the thing that I like to do is I'll paint the base coat whatever color I want it to originally come through, and because you can always rip it and tear it up. And I'll mix the glue with the color. So like on this, I did it with the black, and you can do like a white and black and get it gray depending on what the color is. But I'll actually mix it with the PVA glue. Normally the glue, if you're using the white glue, it's going to obviously turn the black a little, lighter to a gray. So you have to mess with pigments. And as you're using the pigments, if you add a lot more pigment, that's going to make the reaction different, because now you're adding not only pigment, but you're adding the binder that is holding the pigment in the paint, and the binder that is the glue, which is the PVA glue that you're wanting the effect for. So you have to check it out. And that really depends on, one, your look, and two, the kind of paint you use. And if the paint's got primer, if it's an outdoor paint, if it's more elastic than the other paints. And so there's factors, and which brings us all the way back to try them out, practice them. And they might work for you, may not. You might have to try something else. Once I do add in the mixture of the paint with the glue, I'll trowel it on and just get it. And this does not have to be nice and smooth. In fact, don't get it smooth. Have bumps in it. Have a little bit more on certain areas and not, because that will give you different effect onto it. And that's what happens on the one on the bottom right, is you'll start to actually bubble it and let it texturize itself. And what's nice is once it's dry, that texture is there. It's not, you're not going to, you can pick it off with, like a knife or something. But for the most part, if you're rubbing your hand on it and such, you'll be able to have no problem feeling all that. And then once you start doing a lighting and you're hitting the lighting, like a oblique side, meaning from the side, it will pick up all those little nuances. And that will even show it more that there's a texture there. Like that's part of that texture. A lot of times we'll use it for like dolls, like burnt pictures, burnt picture frames, books, stuff like that. We'll put it on, but it works out really good on those as well. And then if on the next one, you actually see the next slide, you'll see the same type, but kind of did it as like a faux wood. I personally didn't do enough, I feel, on the right picture, which is the finished one. I would have brought the fade up more to the wood. You just see like a little bit, like maybe like half an inch or so. I wanted to bring it up actually more, but you could see on the left side that when I'm that close to it, you're trying to get underneath and break that seal of the paint and the glue, and then that will help kind of give it the bubbles that you see on all the way to the right side. You see those little pocket of bubbles that are bigger, and that's from getting it underneath. And you could swell those things up, I mean, damn near to a size of a baseball, depending if there's enough glue, and which looks really cool, and you can let it settle, and it just settles kind of funky, and organic looking onto it. Or you can, peel it. And like on the one on the left, there's marked that are just like little strike marks on the left side. And if you look at the finished one all the way to the right, you do see those little markings in there. And, you could see where it's the upper part is where it got hotter, where you could see those little tiny bubbles. So that's where it's starting to go. And then the bigger bubbles it was just getting like just ready to, get ready to burst onto it in there. So it's just a little look on what you can do with them and how you can manipulate them on there. And they're never going to really you're not going to get the same exact result on every one, because it all depends on, the temperature, the hot, the glue, the amount of glue, how you're feeling that day to make it, look like that. But it just kind of gives you, another perspective on it. Go ahead, Brian, on the next one. So this is showing you more for the crackling look onto here. And this, you can apply it with a trowel. This one, I just happen to put it on with my hand onto it. But you wanted to let it stay nice and get it so it's tacky. And then you can obviously, with a hair dryer or heat gun, you can get it to, dry out quicker. That's in there. And like I said earlier, the less glue, the smaller the cracks. And if you're applying thicker coats, you'll get larger, deeper cracks that are in the combination of the actual layers of it. And go to the next one there, Brian, please. Okay, so this is after the glue is applied, and you actually put in, that the glue is going to be so it's, not dry, but you can paint it. And then use, usually, like I said, use that foam. Usually I'll use those little 4-inch ones or the 2-inch foam rollers that you get at Home Depot. And just because you don't need a lot of paint unless you're doing a big job. Obviously, you can get the 9-inch one if it's doing a big job. And you can see the progression that there is no white or gray used on this piece. So it's the actual heat that is taking away the pigment and turning it white while it's cracking it. And that's an effect that you want to go for, because remember, if you just want the cracks, after you get done with the cracks, you can repaint it, and then you can brush it do the highlights with some dry brush. But I kind of like how it looks with the spider cracking. And then the more the heat that goes on, you start to see the transition to the one all the way to the right, where you can start to see through it. And if you hit that with a black light, you'll see those little tiny cracks and those little nuances. And where it starts to bubble up on the right one, I've actually peeled pieces down on there. And I think there's a photo on the next slide or so that will show you that. But this way you can start to get it just to look funky. And again, that looks really good, like on like doll faces or, big prop actors electronics that you want to see burnt on one side. It really, it just kind of helps sell that piece. And then this is using the same technique. And then while it's still hot, you can, manipulate it with, I did it with a wire brush. The upper one is with a paint scraper or a trowel. And you kind of just get it to, just move around and take away pieces that you want it to look more, decayed and more damaged onto it. And it's still UV colored on the base coat, but you can do other colors in there if that's what you're looking for. Most of the time, if it's burnt, you're going to kind of see more of like either like a charred look, which is that burnt umber, or it will be more of like a white, because it's damaging all the paint and the pigment and anything that was behind or on that wall. That's all burning up. So you're really looking like, if it's sheetrock, you're looking at the rock more or less, or if it's like plaster, you're looking at the plaster, right before it burns onto that. So it just gives you a little bit extra for like details and such. Okay, so this is using the Visqueen, the poly sheeting. It looks really cheesy, because when I first tried it, I was like, God, this looks cheesy. But under lighting, it looks really cool. And if you have fans or AC going on, it will blow and move the Visqueen, so it actually looks really cool when you're actually doing it. Hold on one sec. So basically, I'll use you could paint on this stuff first of all too. So you can get white Visqueen if you're going to paint it, because you can use it. I used it for peeling ceilings, and the stuff is really durable, because you're going to get the patrons that are going to want to pull it. And you could spray 77 it, you can staple it on there, but if they pull it, it's not going to rip. They might rip a little of it. You really have to pull the stuff to really rip it and tear it. But it looks really cool as you're walking down a hallway and you see all these different pieces that would be paint peeling just hanging there, where you could touch them and you have a little bit less, and you can have them on the walls. But it also does work with using it as peeling from fire. So you can actually have it ripped off and kind of hanging there. People touch it as they walk by. Kind of gives that eerie, like, oh, what touched me kind of, stuff on there. And you can even throw a little, if you wanted to. The patrons probably won't like it, but you can throw some of the charcoal powder on it. So it feels, they get a little charred looking, as they walk through onto it. But basically, yeah, you're doing it with the spray 77, and it's just to really go, adhere to the wall really good. And what's nice is if you are packing it up for a mobile haunt, you can just pallet them together, because once you pull it up, you could just pull the pieces off that were ripped, let them kind of hang there, and they're back to normal. Nothing will get screwed up with the Visqueen on here. If you go to the next one, you could see how putting it on. So, and this is what I mean by it kind of looks cheesy, because if you look at it, it just looks like someone put plastic sheeting on it and ripped it. But you got to imagine it with the lighting and, with the rest of everything going on, that you're going to see just these pieces that are just hanging there and kind of floating and hitting with the air and such like that. These were also done with the UV reactant paint behind it. So it kind of shows that you have some char, you're burning embers and stuff like that onto it. But it's really just to mimic paint peeling, wallpaper peeling. And the cool thing is, when you're doing your spray 77, again, don't place this stuff flat. Get it so it's rippled when you're applying it. Get it so it's bubbling up on places, because that's just going to help sell everything. You're giving more texture, the cheap way of getting texture onto it. Let's go to the next one. So this one here is with using slip or mask latex. Now, the difference is kind of in the name, but mask latex is normally thicker and used for mask making, some appliances. Most of the time, appliances and stuff and anything thinner is going to use slip latex, which is going to be thinner and it's buildable. I do like using the slip latex for on peeling burns and such, because if to me, you get to pull it and it comes out finer as you're kind of tearing it onto it. And with slip latex, you can also rub your thumb on it to kind of get it so it starts to peel, and you can kind of really manipulate it and get it to spider out the way you kind of want it on there. So I do like using slip latex. The mass latex, if that's what you have, that will also work. It will take a little bit longer to dry because it's normally thicker. But if you need it thicker, you can use that, or you can just keep building up the slip latex. And what's nice is, you do your background base color, whatever you need to, and then you're actually going to start putting the latex on. You can paint over the latex and then peel it. The other thing too is you can definitely use the black spray can paint to get the kind of like the dusting of the smoke damage in between everything. This way it kind of helps with, otherwise it will just look peeled, which goes good when you're doing a peeled wallpaper look, but you're trying to sell that it was kind of charred up, for onto the actual, the ripping of the wall and the paint and such like that. And on this next one, it's more of the same. This is using like a grit or a texture before you actually put the latex on. And what that's going to help with is being able to pull pieces and like bigger chunk of any of the latex that are in there. So if you look, the one on the left is just putting on with some, I believe it was with, it might actually say on here, I believe it was just like stucco or like the ceiling popcorn stuff, just little bits to add to it. And then on the one in the center is after it's dry, the latex is on it and it's been painted. And then the one to the right is you're actually pulled the latex and the pieces of it. And what's cool is you only get like some pieces are very little, like if it was just like like little rock pieces, you can kind of see in the center of the one on the right hand side. And then again, dusting it to get that different. You can also dry brush the edges. Normally the latex is like a milky white. So if you're looking and going to keep the white kind of aesthetic, once you peel that away and leave it, you'll be able to see, like you do on the very right side of the right picture, you'll see that there's still pieces of the latex that you can associate, okay, that's underneath it and stuff. So it's a cool effect for doing stuff close up. Like you really wouldn't want to do an entire wall like that. I mean, you could, but it would be it'd be time consuming for sure. Okay, so now this is for using latex, but using it as like a peeling effect for like wallpaper or paint and such. And this, you really want to hit your base coat, your base color, really looking deteriorated, looking like haggard and stained from water damage and such. And so when you peel it, you'll actually be able to see which is onto the left. So you have different colors that are in there mixed up to show like staining from all the years and leaking pipes and maybe went through the wall, parts of the sheetrock or stucco that you can kind of see. And once that's dry, you paint over with a brush a coat of usually I think I usually put like 3 coats of, even I'm trying to see if it says it should be about 3 coats I'll do in latex. You could do more. Definitely when you're doing it, if you're doing multiple coats of latex, let the coat almost dry, put another fresh coat on it, then let it almost dry, just so it's slightly tacky, and then you can paint it again. Once that is all set, let the latex fully dry onto it, and you'll be adding a separate color, your top color, onto it, which is if you go to the next slide, you'll see this is rolling it on the actual paint layer. Now, I didn't show this on a picture, but you'll see there's a stencil that I put on. So that just helps with, showing like, oh, these people had this wallpaper up and the wall was originally blue, but now you're getting to see that depth going through it. And the 2 center pictures are just peeling the latex off, exposing the base color so you can kind of see it. And you really just want to get it so it tears. And it's basically just like if you're pulling off like wallpaper and such. Hold on one second. Which you can see, excuse me, on the sorry, losing my voice. And see on the right hand side, you can actually see how it's starting to tear and how like pieces of it kind of rip away from just years of decay. I like doing some kind of wall treatment like the pattern on top of it, just because it will sell it. It helps it look like, okay, that is a wallpaper or that is a paint job that's getting, like ripped up and was decayed and such. And then on the right side picture, you could see the damage that it had from like the leaks and such like that. Which note, if you do any of the leaks and the damaging on the base coat, take a photo of it so you remember where you put it, because you want to pull the paint off of those sections. Otherwise, you end up pulling a lot more than you want because you're like, where the hell did I put that one stain? Look good. Where is it? So take a picture of that stuff. And this way you have like a reference point when you're looking at it and be like, okay, I got to peel over here and I got to peel that, and that show all my stuff, and that's just from doing it and not doing that and saying, damn, I got to pull a lot more off because I don't know where the hell I put it, or if you're trying to get them to see a design on the wall, like a pentagram or something, something like that. Those are the things that you have to think about before adding the actual latex. So this way, when it starts to peel, they'll be like, oh, look at that. It was a satanic ritual place at first. They try to make it all nice and that kind of thing, but it's peeling away. So it's a really cool effect. And it actually, if you're like have like ADD like me, or it's really kind of fun because you're just picking it, but again, less is more, because you can definitely get carried away doing this, on an entire wall. Put the music on and you just but all right, go to the next. Okay, so this technique can be used for several different ways. What I did, what's showing on the left is like a little tool I made up, and it's just out of piece of like tongue and groove flooring, that composite wood stuff, and I just put a handle on it, and you just want it as a flat edge. And you can use if you want to use like a stucco trowel where the handle is like this and it's flat, you could use it too. But I mean, these things, you can make them in any shape and sizes that you need. If you're doing like a 4x8, you could do a whole plank and go down on it. And what I use it for is normally to just kind of like stretch out the paint, make it look worn, make it look like there's years of paint that's been on there. Make it look, instead of like how you would look when you're sanding something, you can do it with the paint. This way it's quick, it's not as messy as sanding, a lot less work onto it. The photo on the right has I believe it should have like about 6 different colors, and it's just running it down. You can do it without water, you can do it with water, and you're just sporadically putting the paint on the areas of the panel and going in a straight downwards or across motion to get these to blend together. And you just keep adding paint and the same colors, different colors, and get them to blend in. Add a spritz of water if you want it, if they start to dry up a little bit and you want it to really run down. That will help get that effect on it. But you can use that for like dirty walls. You can do it for like paint that's like appeared to be peeling. If you do it really thick, which on the next side you'll see what I mean on the peeling on the thick part, or appearing like it's pulled on the thicker section.
Yeah, I second this, because we used a 2x4 section of 2x4 on our facade of the Dead Factory. Damon Carson, he was the one that brought this to my attention how to do this, but it was a 2x4 piece, and it was, I think we did a white base, and then we had a blue paint, and then we just took that 2x4 and just kind of dipped it in the paint and stretched it across the siding, wood siding. And it, like you said, peeling paint from the distance, you cannot tell the difference. And it, we have a strobing, or not strobing, but a changing LED light. It would have been cool if we'd added some glow paint under the base layer. That'd been cool. But we have a strobe, or just a alternating LED light that has different colors in it. You can see the white and the paint comes out, when it's going in and out. So
a cool effect.
I love this. Yeah, that's a cool tool though. That'd come in handy.
Yeah, and I mean it's obviously easy to make. It's a screw, a little handle, and just have your chops off.
Right.
And you're
not as awkward as holding a 2x4. It's kind of
exactly. Yeah, especially like if you're doing this, you're doing a bunch of these. You just, it's like, God, you want it as quick and easy and light as possible. And then you can always throw some distress on it, like you were saying with your siding. A quick wash of like a dark gray wash over it, and that even makes it look like it's even more been peeled and aged. And so these are steps to do in lieu of something else, but you can always, all these can be used together. They definitely try doing on those. For this, I'm pretty much wanted to show you like what Brian, what you were saying as far as like looking like a peeled look. I painted the background just funky colors just so you guys could see what colors were going on. But it's basically putting the color on certain areas and then dragging it downwards in order to, get the paint to stretch. Now, pressure is also a big deal too, because if you want it lighter and more streaky, if you look at the middle picture on the left, upper left, as it's getting pulled down, you see it's very light, which will kind of show you like if you're doing like a light peeling or someone scraped it, or like one brush of a sandpaper kind of thing. But the harder you press down, you'll grab more of that paint and be able to move it. So you really play with it and feel how your tool is, because you're going to want a mixture of both, a little light, a little heavy, and then you'll be able to say, okay, this is where it is, and the amount of paint. So less paint is going to give you more of a streaking look, and if you put a glob of paint in there, you're going to end up like painting it. So definitely see how much you want, and and remember your theme. Remember what you're looking to go for, because you're trying to sell a fake look, so to look real. So this way you really have to kind of practice with it and see what looks better. And sometimes you'll do it and you'll be like, God, that color doesn't even look good like that. You think it looked good, but it didn't, and luckily it's paint, you just paint over it. But, but it's definitely a cool technique for like weathering and distressing. Definitely looks good. And on the next one, you'll see it using multiple. And on the left-hand side is adding that bluish color to it and then dragging it the same way that we did on the original color, but it's giving you a little bit more depth and a little bit, more texturing on there. And I did it so it's a little bit, sporadic, so you guys could see how the effect looks. So you could see where the blue on the all the way to the right in the center, the right picture on the center, how the blue is streaking very like almost like matrix style looking, with the way that's sporadic, but it's still kind of uniform. Then how it looks on the upper right of that picture, where it's just a little bit and you still see a lot of the white and a lot of that reddish color that's in there. And you can definitely spray water on here and add more color. So it just looks like, like bathroom stalls kind of look, like that kind of like those ones you go to at a fair or on a racetrack. And they've just every year they paint whatever color we have, we paint that stall, but then as it gets aged, all those colors come out, which was like on the very first picture for the slide, a couple slides back. So it gives you that effect and that text on there. So it's just really, and it's fun, and you can, it's quick and easy, and the cleanup is super, those flooring boards are basically like rubberized plastic, that kind of stuff. So you soak them in water, they're usually pretty good. I haven't yet had any expand on me as far, but I don't leave them in there. That I'll just wipe them off and I set them to dry, but I haven't yet had any that kind of flaked up or, like you would if a real piece of wood was sitting.
But if you did and they flaked up, you could get a totally different effect. You could even turn that piece of wood over so that the wood grain is down, and it might even give you a different streaking effect than, so it's experimentation.
Yeah, never. Well, we very rarely throw things out anyway, but yes, exactly. So yeah, definitely try that. And then you can always do, different, like different pieces. I mean, you can, get a actual piece of wood and then maybe run a grinder on it, or a hard wire brush, to make texture in it, and use that to, you might get some funky design that you're looking for. So experimentation is always encouraged, because you just never know. All this stuff came out because we just sat there and like, well, what if, let's try it. Oh, otherwise we'd still be doing stuff with like ropes and people hanging and stuff. Yeah, it wouldn't be that much, even though that stuff is cool. I do miss those dark ride days. But yeah, so that would be good. This one is going to be the using the alligator silicone. This one, when you're doing it, you're gonna have to need a little bit of thought in here. Basically, because you don't want the charred wood to be very like thought out. And when you look at the roller actually has sections where it looks like it goes from small to large to back to like a medium to a small. So you could definitely use that to your advantage on here. What happened on this here is I painted everything as a base coat with the UV reactant paint and using modeling paste, which is relatively cheap, and you get it at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and I'm sure you can get them in like bigger quantities as well. The reason I use the modeling paste is you really get a like a nice, when it dries, it doesn't shrink on you, it's not cracking on you, and it's made for like painters. So it could be you can paint, you can add pigment to it. It comes white, like a milky white, but you can add any pigment to it. I added black on here, and it lays on really thick, and it takes a little bit to dry. I have not tried doing it with like spackle. It could be done, I'm assuming, but I'll write it down because I'll have to try it, because I'm actually playing around with spackle and stencils for this escape room that I was talking about on there. But so it might work. But the modeling paste I know works. And what I do is you're going to make different heights for it, but you don't want to use thick coat. On the right hand side, it looks like it's thick. It really is not that thick. I mean, maybe at the highest point, it might be a quarter of an inch at the highest with the amount that's on there. But it's you definitely want to do with thinner layers rather on there. And you're definitely going to want to have to play with this depending on the type of silicone roller that you get, because they do make different ones. The one we're using here is called an alligator pattern. If you go to the next one, you'll see the actual roller, and on the left hand side you can see how
Wow.
it starts to get that look. And again, you don't have to press hard because you're trying to just get the indentation of it. You're not trying to actually paint it, so don't go super hard. And again, that comes with playing with it. But you see on the left side, the alligator pattern is smaller. The holes are smaller and they get wider. So like what I did is I started where there was less wood would be the actual parts that were smaller, looking like they burnt away, like they're slowly going and going away into the red. And the thicker ones that are more on the middle, you're going to get and have it like they're still charred, but it's still wood, but they're not as faded as the rest of them on it. The cool thing is it tricks your eye, because if you really put a piece of charred wood and this together, you'll see they're different. Reason being is because
significantly, but
yes,
it evokes that burnt wood just by looking at it. It's like,
yes, because you're actually creating a negative to the positive.
Yeah.
In here. So normally your height, all the ones everything that's recessed in the right picture would normally would be raised, so it would be an opposite on there. I haven't seen a roller that did that, as far as like
the
had
reverse
it like opposite. Yes, like more of a stamp kind of thing that's on there. Probably should be. I mean, I've never really looked, because this actually turns out really pretty good, especially with lighting. And then on the next slide, you'll see, adding some dry brushing to it, you'll actually get that appearance of how the wood starts to look like it's been charred, and it's just been there, and they blew it out, but not in time. It's kind of wood, but it's not. Don't step on it, it's going to crack. That kind of thing on there. So
that looks so good, though.
Where'd you get the alligator idea from? Did you see it from somewhere, or you just tried it out?
No, they actually did it. It was actually there's hundreds of different rollers, and I saw some lady doing one with modeling paste, and I'm trying to think. It was kind of like she did it for vines, and it was a roller that kind of went like this, and it was, when she did it, it crossed, and it made it look like it went like that.
Just continuous vines.
Yeah, and it was rad. So I was like, well, I got to see these rollers. Let me see these rollers. And I went through it. And then I had looked in this, and they did, like, as a demonstration, they did like an alligator, like a picture of an alligator. And I said, well, that looks like charred wood too, though. And I'm like, this is several years ago. So I was just like,
You looked at it with a hunter's eye and you saw
yeah,
something
yeah, it was
totally
just
different
like,
than what the artist intended.
right. And I'm sure, and I believe me, I'm sure I haven't tried looking it up, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that does this, because, it's been, this thing I've been doing for like 5 years. Once I found these rollers and stuff, and they make tons of different rollers, which brings you over to a different side where you're like, okay, what kind of silicone rubber, rollers can I get? Because they have tons of different ones. I mean, they do have like floral patterns, and they have this and that. But like if you're doing, instead of using a stencil and you want to do a floral pattern for a piece of wallpaper, you just roll this thing in some paint, done. Drop a line so it's relatively straight. Crooked is scary, so you could leave it like that and just right through it. So it's actually a really cool way to doing it. And then the playing around with it, with the white and the light gray. When I did it with the black originally, it looked cool, but it like was missing something. And I started pulling up pictures of charred wood, and then it just hit me. And I was like, oh, because doesn't have that light gray look. And I was like, that's what makes it look like it's charred. Like, I mean, granted, the pattern does it too, but what really sells it, I feel, is doing the light color onto it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely cool. And I picked the roller I picked up off of Amazon. I found it on Amazon. So it was definitely, and I'm sure, I haven't looked, I hadn't had time, but I'm sure there's tons of different ones now. Because there was
I just looked, they are available on Amazon in Canada as well. They're not cheap in Canada because I think they ship from the States and then we end up paying extra premium, but it is such a cool technique, and it would save you so much time that it's worth 50 or 60 bucks.
Oh my God, how much they're charging you for it?
Well, there's also, remember, there's a 30% difference between,
yeah, that's true.
right?
That's
So
right,
it's not cheap in Canada. They look like they're about 30 bucks in the States. Still not cheap for a paint roller.
No.
But can you imagine doing this
it,
by hand?
Oh yeah. Oh no. No. I mean, you could probably do it with a stencil. I mean, you probably could do it with, like a traditional stencil and cut it on a Cricut, and then have it like an alligator just go over it. But I mean, there is, you take care of it and, not keep it in the sun. That it's not like a regular roller. Once you clean it off, you put it in the shed or whatever, and you'll be able to use it year after year.
Or there's all those handy people out there, and I'm sure there's a few haunters out there that could probably figure out how to make one of these themselves.
Oh, I'm sure with Smooth On and all the I love using Smooth On stuff. And
you sculpt something once and you wrap it around a roller, and it might take a couple of tries to experiment with it, but damn, you could do it. And that way you'd have an original pattern.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if you could, now that we're thinking about that, I wonder if you get a piece of real charred wood and
make a stamp out of it.
And make a stamp out of it you'd have to do you'd have to actually like epoxy silicone it so it was hard, and then make the negative cast and then make the positive out of that in the rubber. And and then you're actually a real piece of wood, like it's real wood, because they didn't take an alligator and make this out of it,
No, really?
I don't think so. Hopefully they didn't, no animals were hurt. but yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just but it's the effect. Like I would love to see this like on like a wood floor and have it lit. Like maybe if you did it all in plexi, and had it so you could have the burning light underneath it and then the crackling, and that's where you have to walk over. Because that always freaked me out when you saw those drops.
Walk on coals.
Yeah, it's just like you hear like sizzling and people
that'd be cool.
With one of those cattle prods. But
wow,
yeah, it's definitely a fun technique to screw around with onto it.
I'm gonna get a new haunt domain, hauntrollers.com.
There you go.
Got it.
I like it.
Oh, that was the last one.
Yeah, those are just the QR codes that I have, but I did bring in, and I didn't have a picture of this, so I apologize. But I'll put this up on here. What this was, I brought this to to the show at Fear Expo because I had a lot of people ask me about textures for walls. And like a lot of people, when you're going in between rooms, the walls are black. You know, they're dark. You might have some stuff. And I was trying to show them about texturizing. So, like on here is like a clear silicone, but it's definitely when you don't know what's there. And, you know, most of the time the patrons are running across the wall like this because they're scared and they're trying to get through, but they're feeling, and you're like, what the heck am I touching? You know, this is like a painter's latex caulk on here. So obviously you can paint it black so you don't see it on here. This one here is like a popcorn ceiling, so you get the texturizing. The bottom one here is using sawdust, which we all have. The only thing with the sawdust is be aware of it gets really sharp. So you know the amount of stuff that you use it for, because we'll use it for doing rust and stuff like that. But if you start building it up, it becomes like an 80 grit sandpaper. And if people are running through that, boy, you know, you're gonna have a battle scar from that. The other cool thing that we had tried doing were these little like little finger squishy finger puzzle. I don't know if you could, hopefully you guys could see it. If you see it,
yeah.
Those are also in the computer world. Those are used to hold the wires together
oh yeah,
inside your computers. Exactly the same thing.
this stuff is if you feel it and when you're going on the wall and such, it just feels like a snake or something. It just doesn't feel right.
Uh-huh.
And the cool thing, it always kind of reminded me when I was a kid, I went to a haunted house that the firehouse used to give, you know, when you're little kids, you know, back in the 70s. And they used to put your hand, you had a hole and you put your hand and have to identify. And they were like, okay, this might be brains, put your hand in there. It's spaghetti, you know. But
Yep.
when you're a little kid and you're putting your hand in some saucy crap, and you're just like, oh my God. So this is kind of like that, you know, we can't have anybody putting their hands in spaghetti, but at least, you know, if you're trying to give them, you know, just something extra to give, they think that it's just a regular hallway. It's, you know, add something to it. We did one hallway that led into a kitchen, and we had one of the tracks was like buzzing from flies. So what I did is I took 10-pound test fishing line and I tied little bows on like 50 of these friggin' things and put them on different height. And what happened was when they hit your face in the dark, you were like this, what the hell? Because you hear and then you're like, motherfucker, what the hell? You know, it didn't do nothing, you know, but to people, to a person, you think there's flies, you hear this, it smells, what the hell's going on? This guy's cooking something when you walk in, you know, it's like, so it's, you know, it's again, you're selling that sizzle, you know,
Yeah.
to get them ready to eat the steak kind of thing. So that's kind of like this board, and it doesn't do you guys much justice because you can't feel it, but it's definitely, you know, remember texturizing stuff. The silicones hold up really well onto these guys. So it's what are you saying on that, Victor, with the covered in mass latex? You definitely could. I don't know how long it would last with people rubbing up against it.
Yeah.
That could also be a cool effect if it's ripped, you know, if it's partly ripped and torn apart. You might.
But your snake skin room, you make a latex snake head
Oh,
on it, hang
that's
those
true.
in the dark,
Yeah.
right?
Oh wow. Yeah, that would
You're
be
from
cool.
you're from down south somewhere where they're skinning snakes and hanging them up, right?
Yeah.
Making myself some new shoes.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
awesome. It
now,
definitely works.
Craig also mentioned that do you have any techniques for like marbling walls? I know we touched on fire mostly on this one, but on the other side, the cold, the marbling, what kind of techniques do you have for making that on a wall surface?
A lot of marbling, if you do it in like the theater world, it's a lot of glazing. You use glaze with it. The reason is because the glaze acts like a water that takes less time to actually manipulate it. If you look, once you get again, take reference photos, you know, get reference photos because there's a lot of different marble. And I'm assuming you're talking about marbling like stone marble, right?
I'm assuming he's talking about stone marbling. Yeah.
Okay, just so I don't want to go off a tangent and be like, that's not what I'm talking about. But if you do that, you're going to end up with your base coat first on there. And you could do it with water, but you're going to do it with a lot of water. You're going to spray a lot of water on this, almost to the point where it's like a tiny little floating like puddle in there. And you're going to actually work it in If you're doing with lines, believe it or not, like synthetic feathers work super good. The actual, not the you could use the feather part, but normally it's the I guess the cartilage from the feather
Or
looking,
the quill itself?
right, of
Right?
the quill, yes. And you'll actually use that and run it so you're kind of outlining it and making marks, kind of like little cracks. And as you do it, since the quill kind of looks like this, it's kind of pointed, you're going to move it around on what you want, and then slightly lift your hand, let it kind of like dissipate and fade. Then you can let it dry. You can put a clear over it, put some more paint on it, and do it that way. The marbling is really all with fading. The other cool thing with the marbling is, if you do, let's say you lay out a black, it's all like an onyx black, and you put out all the black on there, you actually get the line drawn out with, you could do it with a very thin, if you're going to do it with a paintbrush, use like depending on how big, you're going to want to use a round brush. Normally, if you go like about a six, the number six round, it should be enough to hold a good amount of paint in there, and then you'll be able to move it around. Once you do it and it's still wet, take your spray bottle in a light mist and mist over what you just did, and it's going to spider out and fade out that line, which is what it looks like in marbling. You'll get that kind of that like almost like a blurry look in there, and then you start to work with that. Then once that kind of dissipates, you do another one. So it takes a little bit of time, and it is messy, but you could definitely water is the key if you're not going to use the glazing putty or the glazing mix in there. If you do use the glazing stuff, you just get a lot of time to work with it, and you can tint it. So then it's trowel work, brush work, doing stuff with the feathers. It's a lot of trial and error with it, but as long as your base coat is really solid, in other words, if you're like we were showing the first one with the sponge, take the sponge, do your areas where there's white, it's a white piece of marble, but it's got gray, it's got blues, fade those in with the water, let it dry, and then go over it and start doing your actual marbling, which is, all the little veining that you're going to have in there. And then you'll spritz that and get that to work over it. Once you're done with it, and if you like it how it looks, I would definitely put a clear coat over it or some sort of glaze. So one, you're going to keep it'll look shiny. Two, it'll keep it from getting damaged on there. And if you're like if you're doing mobile stuff and you're doing pallets, make sure you put like a little fairing strip between, so they're not laying on top of each other, because after a while from the compression and stuff, you pull it off and it's going to rip pieces in there. And marbling is definitely hard to try to match if you're going to do it. Did that help you at all? Answer, it's hard to do without kind of showing. But
Yeah. He says he's doing the technique now. Lots of water and spray. We'll try the feather. Thanks. And yes, it answered his question.
oh, okay, awesome. Well, definitely, and any of you guys, I mean, definitely, they know how to reach me, and you guys can definitely reach me anytime, day or night, whatever. It doesn't bother me. If you guys have a question or whatever, just let me know. I'm always here to help.
Awesome. What do you think about like I know a lot of people use drywall, texture, mud, spray foam on the walls, and the spray foam has a tendency to pop off and stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah, spray foam's got a shelf life, believe it or not. Like out of the bottle. The thing with the spray foam, if you use like a polyester kind of epoxy, you think I work for Smooth On, but Smooth On makes a really good two-part epoxy that you can go over polyester type of foam, which is most of the time it's that type of foam, and that's why it melts when you spray paint it or you use acetone or anything like that. But it works really good for sealing it and containing it. I've used it before for like in labs where you had like bottles that overflowed, and I would coat that with the epoxy, and it actually works pretty well on the spray foam. It's going to come apart unless if you don't do that, if you're actually using it for like a brick and mortar and staying there, I would definitely do it with an epoxy. If nothing else, I would probably try to do it with more of like a foam latex or a rubber. Try to mold it, or a silicone, just because it's going to hold up better to the high traffic area than the spray foam, because I mean a lot of even like tips at the spray foam, you'll see like drips and stuff, and you pull it off, and it breaks really easily. And if it's not really attached to the wall good, you can lift the whole thing up sometimes. I don't know if you guys seen, you'll see something, you go to pull it, and it's like, oh man, this thing's not even hooked in. But there's a place for it. I like it. I would definitely seal it if you're going to do it. And if you're painting it, you definitely got to prime them first. Like do a good primer on them. Normally like a brush primer, and then not like a paint and primer, but an actual primer first, and then paint over them. And it usually takes a couple colors because it can be a little slick. But then once it's dry, it's pretty good. And then you just glaze over with the epoxy coating. But I've used it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we've used it for blood guts coming out of stuff, and out of 55-gallon drums oozing shit. And so it definitely works. The spackle, I like it because of how manipulating it is. It's just that it's super heavy. If you're transporting it, and it cracks really well. If you wanted to do less of a crack and kind of have, I mean, like they have like Synergy does one that's good. There's certain stuccos, but it's hard because there are a lot of them, even the fine coat stuccos, like you might have to get the mixable ones and just try to mix it down so it's a little finer on there. But if you're not using a super big area, I've used Bondo before, which holds up a lot, like Carbondo holds up a lot better for things, as long as it doesn't have to move. If it's on something that's going to move, it's going to crack too. But the nice thing that I had used the spackle for was doing stencil work and spackling over it. And I've done it for brick for years, as far as doing like taping out all your joints, all your God, I can't think of the joint in between the bricks now. My head's going out.
The mortar?
Yeah, like the mortar and the seams. I will tape that out, and then I will mud over that. And then right after I'm done texturizing, I'll peel it off, and it gives you the height and all those different bumps and bruises. And then it helps with the painting and helps with the washes as well. The grout line. And then once you
that's the ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get in, and then once you wash it, you get all the grout, everything looks good, but it gives a good texture for it. But again, it's got to be like relatively in a use thin. The stencils, it looks really cool because it gives that raised look that's on there. But you could probably, I mean, if you're doing small areas, I'd probably say you could do it with Bondo. The issue with Bondo is depending on how much hardener you put in, you could have like 30 seconds to work with, or you might have like 15-20 minutes, but then it also takes longer. Like, the less amount of hardener you put in for the Bondo, the longer it takes. It might take 2-3 days to cure. It might still be tacky when you're touching it 2 days later. So it kind of gives or takes. But I have used like the Synergy was decent. The stuff I did try that was super lightweight is, oh God, it's a foam. It's a foam putty. God, I can't remember the name of it. I'll get the name and I'll send it to you. It's a foam putty. I found it in a jar this big, but we did it for actually covering up damaged holes and stuff in styrofoam that we had for this one prop. And it hardens like super hard, and it's sandable, it's paintable, it's what do you call it? With your putty knife. Yeah, right. Moldable. Thank you. And when there's so many things going through here, you're just like picking everything. I'm like, okay, but stay on the top. But and it's nice and lightweight. And it says, oh, actually, can you give me 1 sec? I might have the piece.
Sure.
1 sec.
Guys, go ahead and get your questions ready. We're almost going to close it up here in a little bit. So if you have more questions for Rich tonight, I like tools and like his little wood thing. I can see me using that.
Yeah, that one's handy. Using scrap pieces of wood as scrapers. It's like, yep, that makes sense. I don't know if I've purposely created one with a handle. That one's a new thing to me. I just did take a piece of wood and go.
Yeah, get your hands all dirty and paint.
And then swear because you get paint where it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
We all have those scrap pieces of wood and whatnot. So
yeah.
So this is. This is just a crude, just to show people but it's kind of like breaking the mortar, but I'll put it to the
Right.
side. Can you guys kind of see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's just foam pour board.
This is just like a piece of canvas board for painting, but like I'm bending it this much.
Yeah.
And it stays on. Now, granted, look, if I wanted to really pick it off,
Is that Bondo or is that
pick it. No, this is that foam stuff.
what's the foam stuff?
Yeah, and this is light as hell. So I will definitely usually I write it on the back of these things, but I didn't write it on here. But the cool thing is this is unsanded right here. You guys can see. And then you can see where I actually sanded it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to kind of see, but it's pretty smooth.
Right.
Now, I think like Crayola makes some sort of an air dry clay, but I know there's other companies that make some too, including Smooth On, that makes some of that sort of
But
stuff.
we should we're plugging them all the time. We should get
Yeah.
a
discount. Yeah.
Smooth On, are you listening?
Yeah.
Right.
Put a couple tags on there.
Right.
But yeah, it works really good. For light stuff. It's another thing. I think I did find that on Amazon too. I'll double check, but I'll send you guys the picture of it on there because it's just awesome stuff. And I didn't think it was going to work, and I really thought it was going to crack, and that's why I put it on the board.
Yeah.
And,
to test it out.
yeah, how many of us are going to be doing this in the haunt anyway? But I wanted to make sure
Well,
that
our customers do.
but I'm figuring like if it's on a piece of 3/8 ply or something like that, that ain't moving,
No.
unless they're
Yeah.
trying to pick it or something, but
And definitely lighter than drywall compound.
oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. I thought when I received it, I thought there was nothing in it. I thought they were trying to be funny or something. I thought it was empty, and it was packed full. It's that light, and I
Wow.
was like, this can't work. There's no way this is working. And I tried it, and a day later, I went back, and I was like, man, it's hard. And I was like, okay, let me see. Does it sand? And it's sanded, painted, fine. I was like, this is some cool stuff,
So you're using it on tombstones and stuff, patch stuff.
I actually was using it on in a tomb. It's a tomb, an actual like pharaoh's tomb, where we had styrofoam pieces on the wall, and there's a pole in there, and sometimes the kids like to go in there and they jab the pole thinking it's going to do something and put holes in it. And I was like, okay, there's got to be something I can use. It's better, than spackle or something like that, and then I had found that just going online and looking, and it works great. Yeah, I'll send you the picture of it, because when you guys get it, you'll be like, what the hell, there's no way this is working. But it works good, and you trowel it on and you can manipulate it, and it's you could I haven't used it like this, but I bet you it would work with the stencils, going over it and pulling the stencil off, having it raised onto that. So that would be, I'm gonna have to try that. Okay, I'll write that down too.
Get your work. You come on here to teach something, and now you got all this work to do.
Oh, no, yeah, but this is the fun part. It sparks
It
ideas.
is, man. It is.
And this is like the one thing that I really like about doing this kind of stuff is that it sparks that creative aspect, because you got all you guys that are creative and thinkers and and just problem solvers, and then you put us in a room, and next thing you know, we're coming up with some funky stuff, and that's the whole point.
The mastermind.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
sets us apart from the back in the day, the old timers, where they didn't want to say nothing. They were just
That's
like,
right.
well, do that and turn your head while I do this.
Don't look.
Yeah, don't look.
Yeah.
It's above your it's below your pay grade. Don't worry.
Right. So you shared a lot of good information tonight.
Thank you. I
Hopefully seemed like everybody picked up something out of it. Closing question. So people that are wanting to get started and say they haven't touched the wall, they're trying to figure out what to do, where to go first. What are some recommendations that you would give them, just to, they want to, of course, start your theme, figure out where you want to go. What else you want them to do to get started?
I usually do like kind of storyboard everything. So I'll take out a piece of graph paper, I'll draw out what I'm looking at, and then from there get kind of reference pictures and do colors, and you don't have to be an artist to do this stuff. You just really want to block it out. You could do it on the computer, and I'm just old school, so I'll do it on graph paper, and then I'll kind of get areas where I think stuff should be, keeping in mind your theme, keeping in mind your flow of traffic, all your safety stuff, your jump scares, possibility, like that's all got to kind of be in the back of your head when you're doing this, because you have to just has to be there, so oh, that's not going to work because they're going to be coming around this corner. Okay, I'll put it somewhere because you like it. You like that idea. And then definitely when you're at the wall, a lot of times I'll draw stuff out on the wall. If I'm putting like bricks, or if I'm putting stone, or I want a certain, like a peeled effect somewhere, I'll put it on there and mark it. So this way it's on there. Also, if you're going to do marking, like stuff like that, do not use paint markers. Don't use Sharpies, okay? Because that stuff
They
bleeds.
bleed through.
If you're going to do it, there is a pencil. I used to do pinstripe work for cars and shit, and it's called Stabilo pencils. And you can get these pencils. They'll wipe off. What we used to do is we would do grids on them, and then you would do your pinstripe work so everything matched up from each side, because it was just a regular grid pattern. You just kind of matched the print. And once you went over these pencils, it wiped it off there with the water, the activation of the liquid. So you never see it. But definitely don't use anything that's going to be a bleed through. And I'm sure you guys have all seen it. You'll see, it will say, like 44 3/4 by 21, and you're painting over it, and you're like, fuck, I still see it. It's like, no matter what you do,
Yep.
it's like trying to cover over blood, or red paint.
Yeah.
It's just,
You need to go buy that, what is that, Kills stain blocker, so
Yes.
that you can actually stop it. And sometimes it still bleeds through that shit too.
Yes.
It's like,
yeah, it might not, because I've used stuff like that, and it would work for like a few days, and then you start to see it bleed, and I'm like, what is this, like tobacco? Because I've seen that, the nicotine, where people are smoking so much and it bleeds through the paint. But I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But yeah, if you're gonna do that, definitely go more in the route of a pencil. But if you can get a hold of the Stabilo pencils, they sell them on Amazon. I'll usually use like a blue or a yellow, and just mark out stuff. Also, post-its work good too. If you know this is where you want this and this is where you want that, and there's a cabinet here, so you don't want to paint that, technique.
yeah, you don't need to paint behind the
Right.
cabinets.
Exactly. I don't. Do you guys have to do fire retardant for your paint out there?
Not for the paint, but there's fire retardant everywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta
Yeah, like
spray
your
it
foliage.
or mix it in the paint.
Right. Okay. Yeah. See, we mix most of ours in the paint. So the base coats are all going to have the flame retardant in it. So you can if you're just putting a shelf on there, you don't have to. Once it's the flame proof is in it, that paint, you don't worry about that. So that also saves you on paint, and on labor hours and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely just know your theme. Think about it. Definitely look at pictures. Get a little book of reference photos for yourself, and then always being good with the lighting guys, because you want to make sure that most of us now don't use park cans with the gels. Everything is RGB LEDs on there, so they can change the colors and stuff, but you want to kind of know, okay, well, what are you guys looking? This room is supposed to be like this. How are you thinking of lighting it? And just so okay, well, I can do this. And most of the time I'll paint with the theatrical lights on, for like the fine touch stuff, because that's where I want to hit the highlights and the low lights in there. But I'm a big stickler for people who like to come through the haunt during the day, like news crews and stuff. I want it to look like, wow, okay, yeah, that's a whole whole sewer system. That's awesome. And then when you light it up, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully that works. But again, if you guys have questions, feel free to reach out anytime.
Well, appreciate your time
Excellent.
tonight. That was
Thanks, guys. I apprate this. This is great. I'm always happy to talk to you guys.
any chance to talk haunt, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, tell us where they can find you again one more time. They want to reach out.
Okay. If you go Instagram, it's Bent Circus _ artistry, and then Facebook. If you just go Bent Circus on Facebook, you can find that on there too. Oh, thanks, Victor. Appreciate it. Now these things are popping up, so I can actually see. I wasn't ignoring you guys, but yeah, any of those. And then my email is info with the number 4 BCA@gmail. And then you guys can email me on there anytime. Not a problem.
And spell a Ben Circus for us. I know it's
Oh,
spelled
sure.
different.
Bentcirkus, all one word.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we'll see. No, wait, were you at this last year's transfer? Where I remember seeing
No, I didn't get to go last year. I went the
the
year.
year before. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in there. Yeah, we had too much work to do this year.
Yeah.
This is, and I heard it was pretty good this year too.
It was a good show. And I heard the East Coast show was good too.
I did hear
Being,
that.
being the first year.
Yep.
So,
Well, and they're supposed to do. God, I was talking to Doug Sheldon during Fear Expo, and he was saying, "Oh God, where?" I want to say Lake Tahoe for West Coast Honors Convention.
okay.
I know. I thought it was Lake Tahoe. Originally, I thought it was going to be further south, but yeah, supposedly that's supposed to be, that's 2025 though, I believe on there. You guys,
Midsummer's Cream, California.
yeah,
Shoo.
yeah, I'm not going to, not this year. No, too much
Yeah,
stuff.
I've been
Yeah.
It's your home convention, man. You got to go there. It's not that far away.
I know. I get ribbed by David Markland all the time, but I was just like, man, it's a big event. Like we used to do vending stuff there too, which was, and it's gotten huge because we started during the Scare LA days, and then they bought Scare LA out, and Midsummer Scream was small when they first started. Like it was little. It was like a basement at the convention center or something. And now it's like Comic-Con. This is like, it's amazing. But definitely definitely good. Definitely a good show if you guys ever do.
The Hall of Shadows, the home haunt section.
Yep.
I always like catching the videos of that.
Oh yeah, that's some great.
My thing is flying. I haven't flown in about 20 years. I drive a lot of places where I go. California from Missouri is like 2-day trip there and back.
Oh
yeah, I see all the cool videos that are happening on Midsummer Scream.
Oh, it's definitely a good show.
Yeah,
it's always been a good show.
I wish I could go to them all. Maybe when I retire in 6 years, I'd be able to do that.
Oh,
just travel, go
well,
every show.
you could probably write it off as a business expense if you went to different
yes.
It's for
just need to win the lottery so I can afford to go to them all, because coming from Canada is damn expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, doubt. I would. Yeah, that would be. You guys have to have good stuff out there, though, right?
Not as much, because our population is like, it's spread all over the place. There's a big film industry in Vancouver, which I could get to in 12 hours of driving, or 14. But it's cheaper for me to fly to Florida than it is for me to fly to Toronto if there's something there.
Wow. That's unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
That is
it's stupid.
Well, Hong Kong was in Daytona, so I did that one this year, which wasn't actually bad. It wasn't bad.
Good.
It was a good show. So it's nice.
It's just time and money. There's that day job thing that you need to be able to work at to afford to be able to go to some of these. So I need to win the lottery. I haven't been playing. So there's a chance I'm not going to win.
Well, I had somebody tell me years ago, like, well, just save the $2 every time you want to buy a ticket. And in 30 years, you probably have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where's the fun in it? Might as well work.
Yeah.
Big difference. It's gratification.
I don't play, so I should be a millionaire by now. Shit.
Yeah. Hey, I wish you the luck. That should only be. We actually do this in person.
My mom plays all the time. So, well, if you're winning, you're gonna give me some of that, right?
There you go. You got to keep in a good graces. Make sure.
That's right.
They'll bring up all that stuff you did years ago.
No, I have her over for dinner. She comes over for dinner at least twice a month. So.
Right on. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, I'm the only one out here. The rest of my family's back east.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good sometimes, and crappy sometimes.
Right.
It all depends.
Get out and see them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks, guys. I do appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. Always awesome. Good luck with it.
See you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
I need to play. Our hockey team is playing tonight, and they've got a 50-50 draw. The bonus jackpot is $1.5 million. So that's 1,500 US. And the main raffle jackpot is up at $3.82 million.
Oh my God.
Oh.
And 50% of that is going to the local children's hospital. But that's how insane we are with our damn jackpots. It's now $3.88 million for the main raffle jackpot. So I'm
Wow.
not sure whether that's the split or whether that's the prize. That's the half.
Jeez.
We're insane. We
Yeah, no
are
doubt.
insane.
Yeah,
Again, that's only,
wrong with that?
it's only $5,000 US, but you know how it is.
Hey, if someone gave me $5,000 now, I'd be happy.
Exactly.
Might go to Midsummer Screen to buy some stuff.
Yeah.
No doubt. But yeah, if you guys have questions, I will look up the foam stuff and send that to you.
Okay.
But you
Sounds
guys
good.
have it.
And when I send this email out, I'll just send whatever you have anything extra you want to throw in there. Let me know, and I'll just send out this.
Okay.
Got
Yeah.
about a week or so.
Okay, I'll send you the. Did I send you the PDF paper of all the supplies I've used?
I don't think I got that.
Okay, I'll send that to you because that actually has the foam stuff on it too.
Okay.
Okay.
It's like a double-sided PDF, but it gives all the the stuff that I used for the stuff we talked about and all the products and everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll include it with this class.
Awesome.
Sounds
Well,
good.
thank you guys. Good seeing you. I will talk to you guys soon.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks again.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Rich.
All right,
Everyone,
take
good
care.
night.
Yes, you
Bye-bye.
too. Thanks.
Bye.
This podcast episode sponsored by Scenic Badges. Get your Scare Badges at scarebadges.com. Also sponsored by Hunter's Toolbox. Take your haunt to the next level at hunterstoolbox.com. Thank you for listening to Haunt Topic Radio. Please leave a comment wherever you found this podcast. Each comment you leave will help spread the word to other haunters around the world. See you next time.